Hey, it's Troy from ZComics.com, and I have another special guest. You probably remember him from our previous reviews of this book right here. Here Comes Calico. We got H.H. German there. Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, Troy. Hey, audience. Thank you so much for having us on again. I appreciate that. We're very excited here to talk about issue 5.
Yeah, no doubt. And that just that was kickstarted successfully just recently.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I got you. You graciously sent me a copy to the preview, and wow, when you told me at Fan Expo Denver just what all was going to be going on in this book, and I kind of believed you, but I in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, I got to see. There's no way, but wow, this one really delivered quite a bit.
Right. Listen, we don't mince words. Well, you should know by now, Troy, that when we say something, we can back it up pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'm still, this is issue 5, and it says of 8.
Right.
I'm still, I don't. You've introduced a couple new characters again.
Right.
I don't know how you're going to tie it up in 8 issues.
We're giving ourselves lots of work, but we're loving every minute of it. And we have some good news that we're going to be sharing on this stream. And before I do share that, I just want to again thank Zia Comics and recognize Zia Comics, because Zia Comics was certainly the first platform that recognized the potency of this title. I mean, this is without being involved with the company. I say this is just a fan of comics. This is an incredibly potent and powerful title that not only has significance for the cause that we're fighting, but the quality of this, the team here is just top notch. We work extremely hard on this, and you can see when a team is truly involved passionately with a project, everybody brings out their best, and that's exactly what's happening here. It's a great comic book series, and Zia Comics was really the first one to give us the platform, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we thank you for allowing us to have these copies to preview. Like I said, I just the team. I know you just had an artist change not long ago, but
right,
he fits right in with the previous one. So I didn't even notice, honestly, that the artist had changed.
Right.
And both artists, what I've noticed so far, they almost like they put little Easter eggs in the background. When you read it, don't just read it, and go to the next panel. I have to read it, and then I look around the panel, around the edges and everything,
yes,
to see if there's anything hidden in there, because
yes,
I mean, there's not a lot of them, but when there is
yep,
one in there, you're just like, oh, okay.
Yep. That's key. It's funny. I'm going to actually talk about this for a second. That was imperative. I don't know if you remember. It sounds like we've been through a few battles together with how emotional the series is.
Yeah, with this book, it is an emotional battle.
Right.
Tell you, yeah.
It sounds like it almost feels like we've known each other for years. But it's actually been a little over, I guess, a year and a half. But
right.
Let me tell you that when we sat down with the team initially, before we even laid a pencil on paper, I made it clear to all, the entire team that we wanted to have New York City be the accomplice of Hector. And when you have that kind of situation, you are going to absolutely have Easter eggs all over the place. In this title, issue 5, there are, in fact, Easter eggs, most of which are sort of, how do you call them? Like hidden meaning. So only certain individuals are really going to know. But I'm going to share one with you right now. All right. And this is even before we get into talking about the comic. So when I was in high school, I went to an all boys school in Westchester, which is just north of the city here in New York. And our little squad, we called ourselves Deep Six. And we were all a bunch of, fighters, rough guys, whatever. And you will see that Deep Six graffitied on Kingman's building at the top.
So there's Easter eggs that we don't even know about that are just hurting it to you guys.
Yes. Right. there's a bunch of fans of Here Comes Calico that are from the 90s high school that I went to that love the comic book because they're rough and tumble guys just like Hector.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
And so the city's almost like a character in itself.
that's right.
But that was intentional.
That was intentional. And if you see, it is not, excuse me, it's not directly conveyed in the comic book, but it's certainly implied that Kingman, our favorite character, of course, is of Irish descent. And he, of course, is from Woodlawn, which is a very Irish area in the Bronx. So you even have people talking with the brogue, the Irish brogue in that neighborhood. So,
yeah. If Kingman doesn't get a spinoff out of this, then you're missing the boat.
Yeah, we've actually discussed this, but we don't want to put ourselves too ahead of the cart here. We just want to make sure we put out the first volume is solid from top to bottom, and we actually just got a really great review by one of those other very important reviewers for comic books. But that's for another time. We're on Zia right now, and we're super excited to talk about it.
I've read a few other reviews, and I've yet to read a negative review about Calico.
Right.
So I got to imagine that one, like you said, that was probably a really good glowing review also.
Yeah, especially because this guy doesn't give. I mean, he's in my opinion the toughest. I don't think I've ever seen him give anything over like a 6.8 or a 7, and we received an 8. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name on here.
Sure, go ahead.
His name is Gabe Hernandez. He's from a comical. I think it's called Comical Illusions. He's from Weird Science. It's one of those websites that cover. So he's a very respected comic book reviewer. So,
well, you got his accolades, so that's saying something.
Right. Well, we have yours, and we appreciate that. Like I said, you guys have been with the title from the beginning. So
yeah. Well,
so issue 5 introduces the Jiggler.
Tim Alberts. I was getting ready to ask you.
Yes.
Right, that dude right there. I mean,
there he is. Tim Alberts, the Jiggler.
You can't think of a better villain name than the Jiggler, and then he fits the description too. So,
oh yeah. So,
I mean, what can you tell us about the Jiggler? I don't want to give too much.
Sure. The Jiggler is a man with serious mental illness. He's paranoid schizophrenic, and in addition to having that condition, which he doesn't manage well, he's also a diabetic. So and his particular, diabetes is such a has such a wide range, right? So certain diabetics, when they have that low sugar, that actually gets into, aside from the physical effects, that goes into their psyche as well, their emotional state. And of course, the Jiggler, as we know, as I just said, he's got paranoid schizophrenia. And he also happens to be a very big, large, physically impressive man. Exactly. Yeah. And we don't know it yet, but, he has a talent. And what he does best is move that minigun around,
Yes, so, he does.
And in his mind, I don't know if we want to disclose it here, but he has a very particular idea of people and what they resemble when he's in that diabetic coma.
Yeah, it's almost like a catchphrase for him.
Right. Exactly. That's, again, this is why I love coming here. You are spot on this. That's exactly what it is. That's his catchphrase, so he goes at it. He goes at it pretty hard. That's another thing.
I just have one quick question. Miniguns aren't cheap, and ammo's not cheap. So, where's he getting the money for this, or is he just stealing them? Or
so he has. Again, it's not disclosed as of yet, but he has. People with any kind of manic disorder, they literally do the exact same thing over and over and over, and that's exactly what happens with the Jiggler. Once he's out, that's the thing. He's got to be out. And here's how it happens, right? So whenever he has one of these emotional explosions, he's uncontained. He can't be contained. Okay. Now, where is he? He's in a mental institution. Okay. So he gets out. Imagine trying to stop a man who's 6'5", 550 pounds, So he gets out of these places, and he goes right to the place where he feels comfort. And in that place is all he needs to get things done. So that's the answer. Yes.
Yeah, he gets things done, and I mean, Hector ends up. I'm not going to say how, but Hector gets really creative.
Yeah.
In stopping him
Right.
without killing him.
Yes.
I loved how he calmed him down. So yeah,
right.
And that new character. I mean, that's cover and maybe 2 pages in. The first page has some gratuitous sexual episode there, but anyway, yeah, second page, it's a big splash page with him. So,
right.
So you get another character that you're adding in to the
right,
book.
And an important one.
So he's not done, even though they're carting him off. He's coming back.
I mean, listen, you can't just look at him. I mean, he's got a cover feature, So
they need
someone with that. You got to bring the big guns. So
yeah, they need to raise like sugar a little bit,
right? Listen, as you mentioned, we have a lot on the table that Hector is going to be dealing with pretty soon, and he's going to need. Let's just say that there's a lot of resources here involved. So we'll keep it to that. So
yeah, I mean, because no sooner than they got Jiggler under control, they throw Mr. Feng at you,
right?
And I mean, I'm sure him and his son are going to be big,
right,
later on, because they're one of the bigger abusers, from what I can understand.
Right. I mean, listen, we finally see Claw's face. So, Claw, you see the reason why, we introduce the watch first, when he gets out of the car. That was by design, right? So the first thing we see of Claw right in the first page of issue 1 is his watch. It's a very distinct watch. And, eventually, I think it was in issue 3, we do see his face on a picture frame. And then, of course, we finally see him in the comic book, and that's Mr. Feng. Feng is running basically a front in the United States, and that's why his son's here, because his son's managing the front. So, his son's only 19, 20 years old, who's addicted to retro video games and whatnot. He gets a little visit in issue 4.
That was a pretty big visit. Yeah, so I mean, that's more of like the Easter eggs I was telling you about, or asking about. You said the watch and then the little picture frame and everything. And
right.
I didn't realize until you said that. So yeah, that's the same face from the picture frame.
Right. So these are the things that there's a lot of forward thinking involved.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that takes a little bit of forethought. That has to be planned out.
Right.
Wow. So yeah. We've got, Hector's getting closer and closer to Claw.
Right.
I mean, he just, I think last issue, didn't he just get his head pounded in by, no pun intended, by Pound?
Right. Pound. Yeah. So, Pound was surprising because you have to understand that up until now, Hector's been doing this for 8 years. Okay. So he's been wearing the Calico suit, and the Calico suit is on version 12. Right. So we're coming into the story with Hector having 8 years experience of being the Calico, and really no one knows about him until the previous issue, which is when you meet ODB, and ODB is saying, hey, we finally got this guy, and that's because the scrambling technology on Bumble had some issues. Okay, and it happened only twice in 8 years. And they finally have captured video of what Calico looks like on one of ODB's many real estate properties on the roof. You can see that he says they finally got a picture of him jumping off a roof, and they got one of him running down the hall, an alleyway, and they could barely make him out. So the first time that they actually see Calico in person is in issue 3 at the very end, when Calico's making his escape after having fed the dog ringleader to the 2 rabid pit bulls, you know, and he makes his escape, and there's 2 guys who were there to collect the winnings, all right, for the Maxim Corporation. That's ODB's, you know, company. And those 2 guys, they look up and say, well, there's the guy that's on the video. He's like a cat guy. He's dressed in a cat outfit. And they see him in person. That's the first time they spot him. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and it's not ODB from Wu-Tang Clan. This is a different ODB guy. Same initial, different guy.
Right, yeah. The $1 boss, the $1 boss, and that's going to have a big significance as well in this. That's going to have a huge impact of why they call him the $1 boss. You know, so
you know, there's only 3 issues left, right?
Right, and the last one. This is, you know, Troy knows this because I told him this in person at one of the comic book conventions. But the audience is going to learn this for the first time on your show. So issue 8, which is the last issue of the series, is going to be a special feature double issue. So it's going to have double the pages, and it's going to pack a wallet.
You're going to need every one of those pages.
Oh, yeah, that is for sure. Trust me, we're going to tie it up, and it's not going to be rushed and forced. It's going to be paced as deliberately, carefully as it has been in up to date. So we want to make sure that when we proceed with volume 2, everything is in order for a good story.
Well, speaking of, I just realized this. Speaking of Easter eggs, I'm not going to give it away, but I'm going to tell people to pay attention. The title of this one is "Pay the Milkman." Pay attention toward the end, and you'll find out that has more meaning than what you think.
And Troy, you can share some pages, you know. Certainly, if you like.
I want these guys to be surprised like I was. I don't want to spoil that. So yeah, I mean, he's you know, Hector's closing, like you said, closing in on Claw.
Right.
He's got a couple leads, and the one dude is he's gonna let you know what "pay the milkman" means.
Right. Right.
We got another Kingman appearance. Kingman and his bodyguard, their Gong.
Right.
Scaring the crap out of some street level thugs they have working for him. And I mean, you don't typically, you know, when you think, and for people who haven't seen the other reviews, Kingman is he's got Down syndrome.
Right.
He's also a really very feared crime lord there,
right,
in New York City.
Right.
And I think most of his operatives he has working with him have not maybe not Down syndrome, but they all have some type of
no, you're right.
I don't know how to say it, but they all have some type of, it's not an ailment, but they have some kind of issue.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Running the underground of the city.
Right. Kingman is an incredible character because, as you pointed out, he does have Down syndrome. I mean, Kingman is severely disadvantaged in many ways. Not only does he have Down syndrome, he's also a tiny little guy. Okay, in a space that requires you to be, you know, a tough guy, right? So he has a lot to make up in terms of, you know, aesthetics and you know, execution, but he makes it up in spades because of his ferocity, and it's a calculated ferocity. He's not someone who is obnoxious in any way. He's very calculated. He's very deliberate. He's a remarkable fellow. Very cunning is what he is.
Yeah, and usually when you see people with Down syndrome portrayed, they always have they throw them in like a sympathetic role or a role where they're just happy-go-lucky.
Right.
You turn that on its head, man. This guy, not sympathetic. He is ruthless. He had, like you said, he's very calculated in what he's doing.
Right.
And there's a reason why he's a crime lord.
Right. And there's a reason why he does the things that he does. You pointed out that he's got one of the two Latin fellows that Hector looks over there at the hardware store, you know, in a precarious situation. So, you know, and it's because of the way he is. That's the kind of vibe he gives off. And he, you know, mind you, these aren't two pushovers, even though in Hector's eyes, you know, Flacco and Primo are the two Latin, they're like in their early 20s. They're like 21, 22. They look up to Hector. They know him from the neighborhood. And of course, you have to understand, in any hood, which of course, yeah, Hector's from the hood, from the Bronx originally, you become a legend. You have legendary status when you have any success in crime. Okay, the hood is a remarkable place, Troy, because you have athletes who are stars, okay, and you have criminals that become stars in the underground on the streets. If you're from the Bronx, the South Bronx, and you've gotten away with being a burglar for years, and you're a decorated one to the point where actual criminal kingpins respect you for what you do, you're a legend. And that's what Hector is on the street to street people. That's why you never really see him too much on the street, because they call him out, hey Hector, and he doesn't want that anymore. He's trying to the point of the story, and where we see Hector now is he's removed from it. He's actually moved from the neighborhood, and you see in this issue, this is why I love speaking with you about this, because little nuggets are shared. Kingman is actually surprised by Flacco and Primo that Hector doesn't even live in the Bronx anymore. He was assuming. Remember, the last time we see Kingman, we see Mean Gene. I'm sorry, I mentioned Kingman. It's Mean Gene. The last time we see Mean Gene, who is a very pivotal character as well in the series, he meets Hector in Woodlawn outside of you know, Kingman's place. So we see him again in this issue, and he's surprised that Hector doesn't live in the Bronx. He assumed you know, Hector was in the Bronx because, you know, he lives there, but that's just not the case. So there's a lot of, you know, again, the part of the story we're here, Hector's trying to get that part of his life over with, and he's 8 years into this, and you know, he's just in a different place. He's not trying to commit crimes, at least those types of crimes, you know, burglary. So in his mind, he rationalizes that what he's doing is not crime. He's getting rid of people who are abusing and killing animals, and there's nothing better than that. And the validation comes with the group that affirms, and not only affirms it, but literally validates him as a person and his views by giving him this assignment as the Calico.
Yeah, and that was my question. He's pretty sure of himself that he is the only Calico operative. And that always struck me as kind of being a little, maybe not arrogant, but I mean, you probably can't tell me. I'm wondering, are there other Hectors out there running for this organization?
I can't disclose that. All I can tell you is that, you know, this is, remember what the Scout says. Scout is the, you know, very attractive scouting agent for the fourth order of St. Francis of Assisi, who is, of course, the patron saint of animals. You know, the order had 3 orders that we know of historically. And of course, this organization calls itself the unofficial fourth, although they run in a very different fashion. So Scout makes it clear that, you know, he is to abide by certain rules in the organization, and that, you know, certain people, you know, this is a board that assesses what happens. So we are going to, let's just say in the final issue, we're going to get more information about that, and certainly enough to satiate your your inquiry.
Yeah, I would love to see Calico Phase 2, I guess, working with other animal themed agents, maybe. And I know you can't tell me. I don't know. That's just me thinking outside the box here.
Right.
So then we go on. We find out more about Pound.
Right.
I mean, because he was just kind of introduced, just thrown in our face. here's this dude who's just beating the snot out of Hector.
Right.
And we find out a little bit more about him in this issue, also about his kind of his origin.
Right.
So, what can you tell me about Pound without ruining it too much for people?
Well, yeah, Pound is basically a Frankenstein monster. He's a zombie. Technically, he's a zombie AI, right? So he is technically deceased, but he's quite alive by the character that's introduced here in issue 5, Dr. A, Dr. Ogtar. Okay, Dr. Ogtar is a scientific genius who has been working on experiments for generations, for decades and generations. And he's finally, his chipset, it's called the Ogtar chipset, one chipset, is at a point now where it can not only animate dead tissue, but it can literally create a very active and effective being to affect, in this case, the wants and needs of the Maxim Corporation. And Stash is really the brains behind the Maxim Corporation, right? So we know now, at the end of issue 4, that New York City is basically run by two kingpins, and that's ODB, the $1 boss, and Stash. Okay, those two guys, and they have different methods, but as of course you also see in issue 5 in a pretty big way.
Yeah.
But Stash is way more calculating than older, I was going to call him Old Dirty Bastard, than $1 boss.
Both names fit.
Yeah. That's true. That is very true. $1 boss is, he's just a down and dirty criminal. All right.
He's like your old school criminal, is right. It seems like.
Absolutely. He's your old school street criminal that is ruthless. And he's just going to do the most vulgar things. And it doesn't matter who. He'll do it on purpose, purpose in front of people. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the Pound, I guess for people, the best way to explain it is he's kind of like the Mountain from Game of Thrones after Cersei brought him back.
Right. That's exactly right.
Big brute that just does their bidding.
Right. And
he's very good at it.
Absolutely. And in the case of Game of Thrones, the Pound's energy is really created by magic, right? Magic and mysticism and dark arts, whereas here we're using high technology and biology. It's really biotech. It's a it's an incredible fusion of biotech and nanotech, because in order to work at this level, you have to work at the cellular level to animate the way the Pound has been animated, because he's not just moving, he has intelligent movement. So
yes. Well, science to the uneducated is magic. So
right. Absolutely. Well said.
Same difference. So yeah. So then, we get a little more backstory on the Pound, but then, forgive me if I don't remember, but we find out how Hector makes a little side money there at the end.
Right.
After he's done torturing people, he takes preferred parts to Lars the Butcher.
Lars the Butcher.
Yeah. Have we seen this character before and I just forgot?
No, this is a brand new character as well. And
again, that's 2 new characters in this issue.
There's actually 3. There's the detective as well.
Yeah.
He's going to be, he gets a whole beat.
Wow.
Right. He's got, because, you're not going to, he can't be allowed to run rampant. Hector, that is, and do all this stuff. Okay. But the Lars the Butcher, he's the compost. You have to think about it. Think about Hector, right? He owns a couple of buildings. When we see Scout, she basically scouts him in the flashback 8 years ago. and says, listen, you own these buildings here, yet you live like a pauper. You don't spend any money. We've been watching you for a while. How is it that a guy who makes, you know, about $250,000 a year, not at least have some kind of lifestyle that's elevated? No, Hector's walking. He's literally sweeping the street in the South Bronx wearing a wife beater. He's got a big gun.
Have a pair of Jordans.
Exactly. His shoes are from Target.
Yeah.
You know, that he paid $20 for. You know, if you remember that.
Yep.
And you know, he's just living a pauper lifestyle, and it's because he dedicates every bit of his life to supporting animal rights and welfare, and he gives literally gives up all his money, and they've been watching him for that reason. So, you know, this is what happens when, you know, you stand out, and I guess there's so many factors that can draw people to you. Money is certainly one of them. You know, we live in America, and, you know, money talks here. And, you know, when you start making a certain amount of money, in the case of Hector, it's not that he was making a lot of money, but what happens is that behavior is tracked more readily. So they were able to do that. And they were probably looking for years to fit that role of Calico, or that agent, at least. That agent. So they found the right person. They did a good job. And, you know, this is an order that's very covert. So they trust me, they know how to find their guy when they're looking to fit a role. So
Hector watched American Gangster and listened to Denzel's words, right? Don't show your flash.
There you go. You know, he's old school, you know, and the thing is, in addition to that, he's just trying to do something different. He's trying to live a quiet life. Like I said, we meet him in issue 4 in the beginning, and he's just sweeping his block, cognizant of what's going on. He knows that there's people who are doing nefarious things around him, but he's just going to lay low and do his thing. And in this case, you know, and to answer your question roundabout way about Lars, you know, you can take a guy out of the Bronx, but, you know, he's still going to find a way to make ends meet. In this case, you know, he rents where he lives. So remember, he moved out of the Bronx. There's a reason why he moved out, is to get out of this, start anew. But he doesn't have that much money that he can, you know, buy a building in Brooklyn. So he's renting there, and he's got to pay the rent. So some way, if he's not going to steal, you know, he's got to get his money somehow.
He's obviously done this before, because everything was cut up nicely and packaged. And yeah, are we going to be seeing Lars again?
Let's just say Lars is very particular about his purchases.
He's got a wish list.
He was very pleased with this delivery.
I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, it's, you know, and then after his visit to Lars, he goes home, and he has some landlord issues, and the landlord has some daughter issues.
Right.
It looks like they both get worked out there at the end. So, yeah, like I said, this is issue 5.
Right.
It says right. Oh, wrong finger. Right there.
Action pack
of 8. I still, like you just told us, you introduced three new characters in this one.
Yep.
On top of the already large cast list,
right,
for this series.
Yep. Jam packed, my friend. We got a lot. That assures you're going to get a volume 2 and a lot of good stuff to come from it. So
the only thing I can envision is issue 8's going to be like on Anchorman 2. Everybody's just going to show up in the park and duke it out.
Well, listen, no comment on anything related to issue 8, other than, you know, we will see some informational closure, at least with respect to the 4th. Okay. There's going to be a lot of movement on that end. Listen, say what you say about all the characters, but Feng's in the picture, and there's 3 issues, and one of which is going to be a double issue. So Feng is in the picture right now. So he's, you know, all bets are off now. You know, he's in, not only is he in the picture, but he's in New York. You know, Claw is in New York. Okay, the Eagle has landed, and we've got issue 6, 7, and 8. 8 of which is, you know, the double issue. So, you know, he's in deep water now, and Hector's out there. Hector is also Hector is aware that Claw is in town. So, you know, Dog Mama, who's another phenomenal. You know, if I were to rank the, you know, my favorites, I would say Kingman is at the top. I like you. I also Kingman is my favorite character. Then I'd have to put Dog Mama up there because she's really the person who ties this all together. She's the one who's going out. You know, I always say that there's always a studious and executive part of everything. You know, the thinking and the doing. When we played video games as kids, all these games came with manuals. Okay, and I was the person. My younger brother, always jokes around with me. He always got to play a lot because whenever the game would come, he's the kind of kid that just come and play the game, just rip it out and put it in the system.
Right.
I would always read the books from cover to cover, and I enjoyed every bit of it. And then only when I became very comfortable with everything on there, I finally put the cartridge in and started playing. And that's what Dog Mom is. You know, she's the person who meticulously works with FA, Fauna Anonymous, and gets all of the intricate details that Hector's going to need in order for him to go out and do this. Because remember, this is dangerous work that he's doing. So he needs to make sure that when he puts on that suit and he goes out there, and beyond that, his base. You know, if you go on RPG traits, right? There's the thief, the warrior, you know, the mage.
Right.
You know, Calico is a thief. Okay, and if I were to guess at his constitution, his moral base, he's in certainly the chaotic good realm for those D&D players out there. So he's definitely going to be more of your Punisher Wolverine type, chaotic good. So he's a chaotic good thief. For you D&D.
The D&D analogy is good. I like that. And you're right. He's probably thief rogue type.
Yeah. Yeah. Thief rogue.
And for you guys, for the younger guys who might have got confused earlier, we used to have cartridges for video games you've had plug into a console. That's what he was talking about. Everything is downloaded, streaming, and
right
cartridges.
Absolutely. I'm surprised I'm not showing more gray hair here, and I left my baton
right there. Well, that's the only place I can grow hair. It won't grow on my head.
There you
go. And it sounds like you have plans past issue 8 for another, I guess, phase 2 of Calico. So after this ends, that's not the end of this universe. It doesn't just shut the door. It's going to open many other doors, it sounds like.
Yes, it is. I mean, we've gotten to the point now, you know, it's a great entry into what we're doing now as a company to spread the word. So we're doing a lot of comic book conventions. You know, I've already met you. I think it's at 1 or 2 of them I met you at, I think.
A couple.
Yeah.
Where are they going to be able to see you next?
We're going to Fanboy Orlando tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
This weekend. So, yeah, we'll be at Fanboy Orlando. That's a 3-day show. And then I think our next event, I think it's Portland at Rose City Comic-Con, I'm pretty sure. In Portland, yeah, Rose City Comic-Con. So every weekend we're doing different shows, and at these shows we did the shows for many reasons, but one of the reasons we did it was for us to test the waters to see what the response was going to be to our series. And it's now unequivocally clear, given that we sell out virtually all of them, that this series most certainly absolutely has legs. And, you know, Troy, I'm going to say one thing as I continue that. The Kickstarters, these crowdfunding efforts are very misleading to our audience because, you know, we clear our goals, but not by much. You know, we're not doing the thousands, tens of thousands, some of these other well-known crowdfunding projects. But we always do, thankfully, clear our goals. But we're walking away with 150, 180 backers. Well, at every weekend we're doing between 200 and 300 sales, every weekend. And that's not one comic book these people are buying. They're buying sets of comics. We're talking about we sell out 100 pounds of comics in 3 days for a brand new title, especially an indie, small independent. That's unheard of. And our competitors even say it. We have competitors come to our booth statically. Okay, this happens at every show. Not only do they buy our comic book, but they say, "Hey, I've never seen anything like this. We've been doing this for like decades, and your comic book is like, people are buying it like gangbusters." And I'm walking in there, and you got to see me rolling in with it's 100 pounds for the suitcase, but then you got the banners. I'm walking with like 200 pounds of stuff, and I leave super light. And it's a great feeling to the ego to know that I'm part of a series that sells like hotcakes, And so this is all to say that when you see those crowdfunding numbers, and yeah, we do achieve our results. No, we're doing upwards of 2.5, 300 sales per show.
Yeah.
So you're talking 2-3 day shows, and so some cases 4. But we're selling out pretty much in all, and it's incredible to see.
Well, I can attribute that. I think your deal is twofold there. You got a very original story. I mean, how many stories are out there where people are taking action for animals who can't speak for themselves?
Right,
dude. There's so many animal lovers out there that that they love to see somebody get their comeuppance for mistreating an animal,
right,
that can't defend itself.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's one tenet of why I think you're being successful. The other is you actually have very compelling characters in that story. So you got the good story plot line, and then you've got characters that are just like with Kingman, man. You're kind of turning the paradigm on its head.
Right.
You got Kingman with the Down syndrome crime boss,
right,
the little people gang.
Yep.
Around.
Yep. Yep.
You got Lars the Butcher. You got all these characters.
Right.
You're just giving them you're like a dealer, man. You're getting them just a little taste to get them hooked, and then you don't see them for 2 issues.
That's it's all it takes. It's all it takes.
Those are 2 reasons why you're selling out every show. Now, if you add in that third one and get the big mass marketing and recognition out there, dude, it's nothing but up. You're going to explode.
Yeah. And listen, as part of that third one, we're positioned to do that because of our price. We're only $2.99. You understand that when you're out at these events, it's incomparable. Right, when you're out at these shows, you're paying upwards of $5, $6, $7 for a comic book, and our competitors are now looking around. And we did this by design again, and we want them to lower their price because we think one of our philosophical stances on comics today is that they're simply not priced correctly. So even though, yes, the price of paper has doubled, but that's only recently that this has happened. There is no reason for any comic book publisher, especially Marvel and DC, to be putting out comics at such extremely high, exorbitant rates. And it's because of their move to the big screen. So this Sigma Comics is an effort by our company not only to address a very serious social ill, which is animals being abused, but also, we are comic book fans, and it is our mission to introduce comics that are affordable so that people can purchase comics again and cultivate the culture. And I'm going to say this one last thing, and it's relevant to the first piece, which is the animal abuse thing. At our foundation, we are a comic books company. Okay, we're a comic book publisher. Our heart is with animals, and we see this as a vehicle to further the cause that's most important to us, which is the fight against animal abuse. Okay, and that's our charge. Our charge is to address the fight against animal abuse through comics. And why through comics? I'm going to tell you why, so your audience understands this. Every study that's ever been done, okay, empirical data shows that pop culture has a direct influence on what's called real culture. Real culture is a social scientific term. It means it is the culture in any given area at any given time. Okay, and again, studies show that any piece of pop culture, okay, especially when made popular and cultivated by an audience, has a direct impact on real culture. Case in point, the Jeffersons, okay, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Will and Grace. Okay, so our cause is animal abuse. We've created a piece of pop art, pop culture that we are feeding with wonderful morsels of content, creativity that can be backed by a multitude of people and supported by a multitude of people. Put it out there in the space so that it can have its influence, knowing, again, data-driven, knowing that it will have a positive impact. The more we talk about it, the more we put it out there, the more the product becomes popular, the more it is clear to the populace that abusing animals is a big no-no, and we have to talk about it. And this is our hat in the fray. So that's why we're doing this, Troy.
That's a very good reason.
Yep.
And like you said, at $2.99, I've self-published a couple of comic books, and I know the cost going into that. So it's not like you're making money hand over fist, because you got to pay artist, writer, letterer.
Right.
Then you got to go get it printed, depending on what quality paper.
Colorist.
Yeah. Colors. Yeah. It's all that stuff, you know, it adds up. And then the printing on top of that is pretty expensive. So, I mean,
now the paper.
I can't imagine, especially, paper's gone up since I've done that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you're making a whole lot off each comic book.
Right.
And, you know, especially with all the events you're going to and everything. So,
right. And that's why this is why we give free advertising to the charities that we vet, to make sure that they are face in front of the audience that's going to be fully supporting of their efforts. It's a wonderful way for all of the organizations, again, that we support, to get more support for their organizations. And it makes us feel absolutely great that we're doing this. You know, again, we're not, as you pointed out, we're not making, you know, money on this. This is absolutely a 100% charitable from the heart effort.
Yeah.
And that's why we're so passionate about it. You know, my mother always says, you could taste passion, you know, in her case, you know, in the kitchen, but in our case, you know, through the quality of our comic books.
So if somebody wants to they get hooked up with you guys, you know, buy directly from you and everything, where can they find you online, or where can they find you in person?
SigmaComics.com, as always. SigmaComics.com. That's the best place to get our comics. Issue 5, I'm now proud to say, is live on SigmaComics.com. So your audience can go right there and pay $2.99, as low as $2.99 for a print reader subscription. If you want to download, if you want to access issue 5 digitally, we have our digital dashboard section. You just have to create an account, and there you'll be able to buy as many of our issues as you'd like. We're up to issue 5, and issue 5, of course, is also available for download for only $1.99. And if you get a subscription, a digital subscription, it comes out to only $1.50, $1.50. So it's a really a wonderful deal, and that's what we're all about. We're all about making comic books affordable and accessible to everyone, as long as you're over 17 years old.
Yeah, there's some adult stuff in there.
That's right.
Here and there, a couple of places.
Exactly. Indeed. And we have our next Kickstarter will be out.
That was my question. So the Kickstarter for number 6 is going to be pushed out, I'm sure, on Sigma Comics. Everybody will see it.
Yes.
And we'll see how many more new characters they're going to throw in the mix to tie up in you know, a couple more issues.
Yes, we're quite prolific in our character creation, but you know what? We want to give that universe wonderful grit and detail. So we believe in making sure that there's a well encompassed and established universe, so that Calico can run around and create his chaos.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all you animal lovers out there, you need to pick up Calico. If you're not an animal lover, we're sending Hector over to talk to you. And I can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wanted to thank you for taking time out. I know you're busy traveling all the time.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time to tell us a little bit about the Calico universe and some of the stuff we might be expecting here in the future.
Thank you, Troy, as always, for having us on. And just one last thing to your audience, everyone who's watching the stream, get out there, get on sigmacomics.com and get your issue, whether it's printed or digital. We appreciate your support, and so do the animals. sigmacomics.com.
You heard him. Go get that. Go there, get your subscriptions so you don't and back these Kickstarters, man, so he can keep going, because I need to see 8. I need to see that ending.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right. Thanks again, HH.
Thank you.